And hello, random people on the internet. This is Segoy Penguin Gaming's devlog for MyLiege. Um, last devlog we talked all about the prototype and the feedback I got on it. So now let's go put a lot of that feedback to use. Except that's not what this is going to be about. So I kind of laid out my roadmap last time, and I've done nothing with the feedback, technically speaking, because all I've done is technical upgrades. I know, I did a little wordplay there. I kind of regret it mid-sentence, but we're going to go with it. So today I'm just going to kind of lay out some of the technical issues I've kind of ran into over the past month. Things that I had to definitely changed from how I was doing it in the prototype because it just wasn't stable, it wasn't expandable, it wasn't something to be proud of in any sense of the word if you look behind the scenes. So those were the things that I've been tackling in the last month, and I'm a little bit ahead of schedule actually. I gave myself until middle October to wrap all this up and move on to actually implementing some of those feedback things we talked about a month ago. And I think I've finished it up. I got to do a little bit more testing today, but I think I'm ready to move on. So, thought this would be a great time to do this update. Before I forget, um, oh, we got pretty convenient cat footage today. We got cat tree cats. Yeah. So there's a little Juliet, and then up there we have a jelly bean. There you go. I wasn't gonna make the same mistake as last time and leave the cats for the very end. But here we go. We're gonna try to be concise on this because I could ramble a lot about all this garbage, and it's not very interesting. I'm guessing because it's all behind the scenes. We are only gonna hit play and look at the game once, and it hasn't. Nothing's visually changed. So, yeah. But let's talk about the three main issues that I really needed to do better or have a more expandable solution on the back end. And the first one is I really needed a better way to handle the events that were showing up for you, the matters. Um, the way I did it in the prototype was just one big if statement, essentially, of hey, if actually it was a switch case statement, but I was basically asking, what turn are you on? Okay, for this turn, here are some very hard-coded, like, these are the 5 events that are going to matter, and these are the long if statements of when I want to show them or not. And that's just not what I want this to be. I want this to be a little bit more configurable. I mean, I'll blame Fast Enterprises for beating that head into me, the idea of making things configurable, but I wanted it to be a little more adjustable than that. So we've scrapped that, and now what it is I've introduced kind of two things. The idea that I can have criteria attached to my um, the scripts, the dialogue chunks, the files that hold all the details about those events that you're walking through. And then I added code to calculate that criteria. Um, and I kind of landed in a middle ground spot. Um, that's okay. I'm not thrilled with it. I really wanted, and this is coming straight from stuff I did at work. I really wanted to have a single string where I could just hype out what the criteria was gonna be in a single string. Turns out parsing strings into their parts and to make the computer read my string and know, oh, these are the functions he wants to call, very troublesome. I had a very simplistic version and it was buggy. And I fixed the bugs and it was even more buggy. So I gave up on that entirely. I was like, I'm not making a string parser. So what I ended up doing is, let me pull up one of my example matters that has a little bit more interesting stuff on it. Um, where are we? Major and minor theft. Where are you? Major theft. Oh, I called it petty theft. That's why I wasn't finding it. Okay, there we go. And when I have the JSON up, I should probably move myself. Whoop, there we go. And so, if you weren't familiar, these are the kind of the JSON files I was doing to kind of have a package, all the details about those menus that you're seeing with the dialogue and what Meeple is showing, what's their animation, all that is defined in here. So, for example, this is the Thieves at Large event where people are robbing your merchants. And I only wanted to show that if you didn't have enough guards on duty. Well, previously I was checking that in the same code that was doing all the other stuff, but I wanted that to be associated to this. This chunk of text now, or this event, now has criteria tied to it. And if we take a look at that, and I'll zoom in a little bit more to make it easier. Not sure what device you're watching this on, so. The idea is the criteria, I'm able to define these functions or operands that I'm going to return true or false in very flexible way. So for this one, we'll run a logical function, and we're going to compare two values together with a certain condition. So for this function, my parameters are going to be how many guards do you have? So I'm going to look at your job counts. Wait, how many guards have, or how many meeples have the guard job? I don't know why I'm trying to reword this. I think it worked the first time. And I'm going to ask, is it greater than or equal to 8? And if so, then this function logical will return true, and we'll show this event. The criteria will pass. Similarly, oh no, sorry, that was petty theft. Only a little bit of thieving because you have a lot of guards. Now, if you don't have a lot of guards, so major theft, we'll see the same type of criteria, but the only difference is I'm using LT, which I translate to less than, which is excellent. Now I can have two events that I don't want it to show at the same time, but I can tie them together, or I can have each one just independently deciding which one to show. And this can get a lot more complicated. I'll show just a quick example of that. This is the event for if you decide to chase the Carlbridge men into their lands. Are your troops successful or not? This is the criteria for that. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. Am I happy with this? I'm kind of happy that I made something recursive enough and flexible enough that this functions the way I want it to. So that's pretty neat. It's not very intuitive or user-friendly, though. Like, developer-friendly, I should say. Because what I'm trying to say is I have an if statement with if true or false. Each one's got a fair amount of logic in it. So I think I'm going to try to come up with a better way of doing this because it comes out so nested, and it's hard to read this and tell myself when is this event going to show up. So I have a good solution, but it's not the best. So we'll see if I come up with anything to smooth that out. However, so what happens with this? Well, it comes in, and during our scenario management, so this is the piece of code that is evaluating everything scenario-wide. So when we hit the next turn button, this is the one that gets its function call to say, oh, hey, we're moving to the next turn. Let's go find what matters to show the players. And in here, that's where I end up calling it. So for each matter that we're supposed to load, I end up calling. Well, first we have to load the asset. We'll get a little into that in a minute. Once that's completed, we'll call matter asset loaded as a function. this function down here, and um, assuming that we succeeded in loading the file, I run this evaluate matter criteria. So that's going to process that logic, return yes or no. If yes, great, we'll keep it, and that'll be on the current for the next turn's matters. If not, get out of here. We're done. Not gonna load it. So that's the power of making all that calc engine stuff. Is I can now sprinkle in my code anytime I need to calculate something or pull a value for the text on the fly. I can do that now. The big thing about that is that the text on the fly thing. So the last example of this I'll show is in my welcome, I have this kind of dummy variable in here at stat food. So previously all my text was static, but now I can sprinkle in with this at symbol to flag that I have variable amounts in here, and it's going to look up your current food. So hopefully when I hit play, this doesn't break. Oh, it didn't work though. Well, what was supposed to happen is it was supposed to replace that text with your food. No. Oh, it's half working. Great. So I got a little bit of debugging to do still. But you can see here in this title, it's dynamically replacing that at stat food with the food number, which is great. I just wish that it had worked on the notification. So got a little bit of work there. So that's the other point where that's going to be really powerful, this kind of way I can have dynamically generated text. Excellent. That was the really big thing. That took me about half the month to put together, to implement, to test out, to tweak it, to continue to refine it to something that I was fairly happy with. Some things I think I'm still gonna have to have in C# code, as like this specific criteria is so complicated, and maybe I'll just like associate it to the situation. I don't know. We'll come up with something though, because it's got to be maintainable. Great. So what else have I done? I'm looking at my time. My goal was to keep this at 15 minutes. I'm running a little out of time, but also the other things that I did were pretty boring. Not much to show. The one of them was all the assets needed to be managed a little bit better. What I was doing with the prototype is I had those JSON files, and I was reading and parsing those on the fly. So when you hit the buttons, all that was happening. Not anymore. That's being done in the editor now, so that none of that has to take place. When I build the project to put it on the internet, great, it's already been done. And so if we take a look, am I covering it? Ooh, well, let's move B. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go. So now if you look right there, we'll take a look. All of the matters that I am going to show you I've created into scriptable objects. All that means is that it's a Unity object that is I'm able to use as a script, which actually I think that has a C# meaning too. So I'm just going off of what it does for me in my understanding the explanation. So all those JSON files have been turned into assets that are, I can look in the inspector over here and kind of see some of that stuff that I was showing you earlier. So it's kind of nice, but now I don't need to include the JSON files in the final build anymore. I'll have these assets that I can load very, very quickly. The other big thing was, as I was working on translating the prototype into this new logic with the calc criteria and stuff, I realized that I didn't have enough flexibility in the stats or numbers I was keeping track of. So I introduced the idea of opinions. And so the game is playing right now. If I click on in my hierarchy here in the middle, houses, I actually am keeping track of the opposing houses now. And so, for example, House Carlbridge, and we look in the inspector on the right, um, I'm keeping track of what their opinion of me is, and opinion of future other houses will be. So I'm just gonna type in player. Whoop. Nope, something didn't work. Great. Really? Oh, there we go. Now it found it. Um, and so what I can see here is Carlbridge, they don't trust me very well. They have a negative modifier on their trust with me. And as you play, different actions will impact that stuff. So, for example, if you accept the trade agreement with them, boom, increases their trust. If you take a kind of aggressive actions to them and they're successful in them, they might, this intimidated by it will probably go up. And so now I have a way of keeping two sets of stats. I'm going to have stats that are associated to your house or the house, and those are going to be like, they define what's happening in the moment. How much food do you have? How much gold do you have? Things that the past doesn't matter about. What is it right now? And then the opinions I'm going to keep track of. Those will all be stats about that are impacted by the past. So your trust, you're intimidated by all that stuff. Friendliness. I don't know. I'll come up with some, but as I need them. But that, and I'll pair them up. If there's 5 houses, each house will keep track of the opinions of the other 4. Is my idea, at least, to help kind of make it so that I have, ooh, excuse me, I have a lot of information to go off of when deciding on the back end what stuff should I be showing or how should it be worded to make it seem more realistic, more intuitive. That's the goal, at least. I did a lot of other little things to kind of clean up on the back end. Not going to get into them. Already went a little over what my goal was, but we're going to stay under 20 minutes because that's all I really have to show. Overall, I'm pretty happy with where the project's at. It runs. There's some bugs that I need to hammer out, hopefully in the next day or two. But next up is getting to that feedback. So if I'm looking at my agile board here, and now I'm in the way again. Whoop, whoop, put me off screen. Whoops. The kind of big things are I need to create a way to. I need to improve some of the option visibility, so I call out when visible stats are updated more visually. Be very clear when you're reassigning people that, I don't know, maybe move the camera along with a little animation or something. Also want to make it so that you can have more options available. Maybe ask a question before you make a decision. We're going to explore stuff like that. So that's what's next up. And hopefully keep the ball rolling here, stay ahead of schedule, and goal is end of December to have a more full feeling demo to play. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for watching. If you made it here, that's awesome. If you only made it to the cats part and you peaced out, I'd understand that too. By the way, you guys have a good rest of your day.